The next witness the state would call be Alan Thompson.
Solemnly swear the testimony you give the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
It will.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Thompson, once you're up there and as comfortable as you can be, you just introduce yourself, tell us your name.
Alan Thompson,
And how old are you, Mr. Thompson?
62.
And James and Austin were your sons, is that right?
That's correct.
How long did y'all spend were they born here in Raleigh?
Yes, both of them.
And had y'all lived anywhere else besides that home in Hedingham?
No.
Well, thank you for being here today and answering these questions. I think the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is, if you could, just to get it out of the way, I'd like for you to start with, could you walk us through October 13th, 2022?
Yeah.
Take your time. What were you doing? Did that day start off like a normal day?
Yes, it did. I did work for an interior decorator, and it was a long day. I stopped about 3:30 to get something to eat at a restaurant on Capitol Boulevard. And when I got through eating, I called James because I was going to the grocery store, and he didn't answer his phone. And so I called Austin. And Austin answered the phone, and I told him I'm going to the grocery store. I'm going to pick up 2 gallons of milk. Do you need anything? And in a regular calm voice, he said no. He said, I'm good. And I was a little ticked off at James because very rarely do I ever call or text him, and he didn't answer his phone. So I said, I won't say the exact words because I use but I said, well, just go ask James if he needs anything. So he said, okay. So about 5 or 10 seconds later, he came back and he said, no, he's good. I said, okay. I said, I'll see you guys soon.
Do you have any idea about what time that was?
Yes, it was 4:23.
And did you go to the grocery store?
Yes.
After you went to the grocery store, where'd you go?
Well, for some odd reason, they didn't have any milk, so I was driving around the back of the store, and a low tire pressure light came on. So I pulled the stop, I walked around, and my tire was half flat. So then I drove to a gas station. It was totally flat. It wouldn't take air, so I had to take all my tools out, get to my spare tire to put it back on, and then put my tools back in. And then in the meantime, I saw 2 highway patrol cars fly by. In Hedingham, it's 1/2 times the size of the city I grew up in.
Okay, so let me stop you there. So
Sure.
where this gas station where you were, where was that in relation to Hedingham?
That was right adjacent to Hedingham.
Okay. And you mentioned Hedingham's a big area.
Right.
Okay. So you saw some highway patrol or some law enforcement drive by.
Mhm.
Did that raise any concern for you at that time?
No, because Hedingham, it's a nice community. I mean, if someone has a health issue, the fire department will send the truck out, or a police officer car will go there. So it's nothing unusual because it's like a small city.
So were you able to repair that tire?
I was.
After you, or while you were getting that tire repaired or repairing it, did you have any conversation with James or Austin at that point?
Well, after I called the tire place to make sure they weren't too busy, On the way driving to the tire store, I called Austin and said, "Look, Austin, I had a flat tire. I'm getting it repaired. I just to let you guys know, I saw 2 highway patrol cars fly by at the back entrance of Hedingham." I said, "I don't know what's going on." I said, "Just hunker down and I'll see you guys later." And in a regular calm voice, he responded and said, "Okay."
Do you have any idea what time that was?
It was
Around?
5:08.
And so, from that point, you've got your tire fixed. Where do you go next, or what do you do?
So while I'm getting my tire fixed, I saw on the wall they had TVs, and I'm seeing what's going on, but it's not my street. It's backside near the Greenway and things like that. So I just figured it's just like another day. Even though there's a lot of law enforcement, it never registered with me. Nothing. I had no concern. So while I was there, I called a neighbor. I said, "If you would," because I tried to call Austin back a couple of times. He didn't answer his phone. So then I called a neighbor, said, "If you would, just go across the street and check on him." And
had you tried to call James during that time?
no, because he didn't answer first time, and he was probably had his headset on because he was on the PlayStation, usually talking to people overseas, and had a good friendship going over there. I thought it was pretty cool.
Was that something that he did a lot?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So you actually had a conversation with Austin at that point?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he sounded fine to you?
A regular calm voice on both occasions.
So you call the neighbor. What happens next?
So he comes back. He said nobody didn't answer the door. So I said, okay, maybe James has his headset on. Maybe Austin's out playing somewhere. Still not alarmed. And so I kept watching TV, and I saw more police involvement there. And so I called 911. I said, in other words, because they were checking homes, I said, "Well, if you would, just do a wellness check." Because I think Lewis, I thought he was going to go to work like in the afternoon, like he normally would.
And that's your neighbor?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm still not alarmed at all. Not concerned. I mean, I know my sons very well. And so then after I made that phone call, my vehicle was fixed, and to just let you know I wasn't concerned, I went to someone's house and did repair work in Nightdale. Still not concerned. And so when I got through doing the work there, then I started heading back home, and I had a problem trying to get home because the roads were so busy or blocked off.
Okay.
And so then eventually I made my way back to Hedingham, and I was right at the lake. And I received a phone call from 911, and they said, "Have you talked to Austin?" I said, "No." And I asked them, I said, "Have you done a wellness check?" And they said, "No." And I was starting to get up. I was getting upset then. I said, "Well, how come?" It's been like an hour and a half. So they said, "Can you get to your house?" And I said, "Well, I'll go the back way as best I can," which I normally don't go that route, which as soon as you cross the lake, you turn right. I just normally would go to the very end. So anyway, when I drove, I parked at the base of Castle Pines and Saholly Way, which I never go that way. I stopped there, and
Was there a special reason you stopped there?
Well,
Was that as close as you could get, or?
there was a lot of police officers there, and so I stopped there, and it was Lieutenant Rigsby. He came over, and I explained to him who I was, and I walked up to him, and like I said, I'm still upset because they haven't gone into my house. I said, "Here's some keys to my house." I said, "Go up there and check and see if my sons are being held hostage." So he goes up, he comes back down, and he said it's under investigation. I said, "Well, let me explain something to you." I said, "This is Raleigh city limits. Your Raleigh Police Department." I said, who's over this investigation? I'm really getting upset now. And so I remember there was 5 folks to the left, Zebulon's SWAT team. They were standing over to the left. And then about a few minutes later, a white car drives up. And this man about my height gets out of the car, and he's talking to me. And then I can't recall his name. He said, "I'm Chief of Internal Affairs." And
And at this point, what are you thinking is going on? Do you have any idea?
Mm-mm.
Have you talked to Elise at all?
I did talk to her one time, I think, when I was at the tire place, and I asked her where she was, because normally she would be home at that time.
Okay.
You know, because my schedule's sporadic. I'm working long hours helping people out. That's just who I am. And so she said she was on the way home. So that's another reason I'm not concerned. I know my sons. I mean, I know them very well. So
So you're there, and law enforcement is starting to talk to you.
right, and they asked me, they said, have you, that's why I know the times distinctly, they said, have you talked to Austin? I said, of course I have. I said, I pulled up my phone, I said, look, I've talked to him at 4:23 and at 5:08. He said, okay. And the rest is kind of a little blurry, because I was in shock when they told me, and it didn't register with me. They said, well, Elise, she went in the house and she found James. And she found James, I'm just assuming, okay, she found James. And then somehow in the conversation, kind of, even though he told me that he's dead, it doesn't register, okay? It doesn't register at all. And so then they said that they had to sedate her and take her to the hospital. And I said, okay. And they said, Austin, he's going, they said about Austin's missing. And I said, oh, well, let me join the search party. And they said, you can't do that. They said, we'll take you to the hospital. So they took me to the hospital. And that's where I met Elise there. She was, she just coming to at that time.
And while you were, how long did you stay at the hospital there, if you remember?
That night?
Yeah.
I was there the whole night. But we lived at the hospital for 3 weeks.
At some point that evening, did you find out what had gone on and what had happened?
When I was there with Elise, there was like 3 or 4 police officers there, and there was a lady who lives in the neighborhood. She's the one who actually went in the house. She told me that. She hugged my neck. And then one of the police officers, they told me, they said, we found Austin. He's in a shed. I said, well, let me go talk to him. And they said, you can't do it. I said, let me go and talk to him. I can get him out of the shed. And they refused. They said, we can't let you do that.
At some point, did you learn that Austin had been taken to the hospital?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And how long was Austin in the hospital?
He was in the hospital for 3 weeks.
And after those 3 weeks, where did he go?
He went to a detention center that has the best medical facilities in the system, and they've done a really good job with him.
Imagine when law enforcement was talking to you, did they ask you questions about, concerns you might have had about him, or warning signs, or red flags, or anything like that?
They didn't ask me, but there were no signs.
I think you mentioned that seemed like a normal day before that.
Every day was normal.
Were you, and I imagine after this, law enforcement had questions for you, wanted to meet with you. Were you cooperative with those?
Of course I was. Ask Billy. We got back into the house on a Monday, and they released James's body that day. And so we were making arrangements for James, and I called him Billy, the detective. I'm sorry, I know him first name basis. And he said, Alan said, we need to meet with you sometime at a convenient place because we need to get some information from you. I said, look, you can come up to the funeral home now. I said, I'll be glad to meet with you. So he came up with another detective, and he had a clipboard. He had 2 sheets of paper, and he said, Alan said, I need for you to sign these forms so we can get Austin's medical and academic records. And I said, Billy, look, I said, I'll sign anything you want, but you got to make me a promise. I said, you promised me you'd find out why he did this. And he said, I will. And so I signed the forms.
And you provided, you met with them, you answered their questions, you gave your cell phone over.
Yes.
Elise gave her cell phone over.
We volunteered after they interviewed us. Our attorneys didn't prep us, and I don't expect to. We had no secrets. And after we got through being interviewed, they said, can we have your phones? I said, sure. I need to get mine back that afternoon because I used mine for work. So we voluntarily gave our phones, I don't know, 11 o'clock, and got them back at around 4:30 that day.
Okay. After that day, you continued to go see Austin, right, while he was in the hospital?
Yes.
He had some significant injuries, right?
Yes.
And while he was in the hospital, was there always a police officer or somebody sitting there or nearby?
Yes.
When you were there in the hospital with Austin, did his condition improve?
It took at least the first 2 weeks because he was out of it. I mean, he had a traumatic brain injury, and it was weird because I'm looking at him and he was just staring straight ahead. I mean, he had this big staples going around here. His brain was fragmented, and there was a board on the wall, and he said he saw animals on the wall. And it's just weird when you see your son. You always known him, and he's saying these crazy things like that. I had to walk out the room a couple times because I just didn't understand it.
At some points, did he became improved to the point where you could have some conversations with him?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kind of I think you described it maybe before. It's kind of miraculous.
It's a miracle. Yeah. I mean, he was brought in the hospital and met with us that night, and I thought I'd never say the words, but I said, pull the plug on him. I don't want a vegetable. And they said, we have to do everything we can because we've seen miraculous things happen. And I was thinking, he's going to be a vegetable. And the first 2 weeks, the best I can recall, it's been 3 years, he slowly was coming around, and you could start seeing some progress, but first 2 weeks. Mm-mm.
And it's been a process. Now, are you able to have fairly normal conversations with him?
Yes.
You still visit him frequently?
As much as I can.
Bringing books to read and things like that?
Yes.
I want to talk to you about Austin. Growing up, did he have any health issues or concerns?
No.
Overall, pretty healthy?
He was healthy.
Was he ever involved in any car accidents or anything like that?
No.
I think when James was younger, you and Elise took him to get evaluated for ADHD. Is that right?
Yes. He had a lot of energy.
Okay. All right.
And so anyway.
And he was younger, right? I mean, how old was he about when that happened?
I think he was in 2nd grade, 3rd grade.
Okay. And that was because you had noticed kind of this activity, wanted to get him kind of seen by somebody to see if there were any issues. Is that fair to say?
Well, the overall thing is this. When my sons went to school, I always met with the teachers up to COVID. And I said, look, I support you folks. Here's my email address. Here's my phone number. If you have something to come up, you email me. If it's urgent, you give me a phone call. I never got a phone call.
Okay.
But anyway, James was very active. And anyway, I had him be moved up to the very front where the teacher was. And if there was trouble in the room, somebody was, want to have fun, he could find them like a magnet. And so anyway, I'd have him to the front. And so then they said, let's get him evaluated. And we took him, and naturally people want to prescribe medicine. I'm not really a medicine type of guy. And so anyway, he was on it for maybe, if I had to guess, 5 or 6 years. And I said, I'm taking him off because I don't want him to be labeled as, I don't know what it's called, 503, 504 in the school system. But the guy was already making great grades. Both of them were making great grades. They were honor students, A/B honor roll. I mean, all through middle school, all up through high school.
And did you have anything like that with Austin?
No, matter of fact, if anything, James was, he got into things more than Austin by far, because when he was, 3, 4 years old, he thought a girl in daycare was like steak, so he would bite her. So eventually we had to move him out to another daycare. Austin was fine. James is the one that had a real, I didn't understand it, but both of them were two fine little boys.
Well, I guess the question is, did any of the teachers that Austin had ever come to you like they had done with James and say, hey, maybe he needs to be evaluated for X, Y, or Z?
No.
And you mentioned that Austin did well in school. Do you happen to know what his favorite subjects were, or subjects that he particularly excelled in?
No, but I can tell you this, 2 days before the tragedy, both of them had to come home with straight A's. James ended up with having a 4.1 grade point average. He was top 7% of his class. Austin had a 3.9 grade point average, and he was top 9% of his class.
And that was consistent their whole time being in school.
Yes.
They always got good grades.
Yes.
And was that something that y'all stressed at home, or was that something that they just kind of did on their own?
Both. I just said, as long as you do your best, that's all I can ask. And I didn't really have to say that much to them. They were self-driven.
Even during COVID, I mean, we're talking about, back in 2020 and 2021, where there's some remote years of school. Did they still maintain good grades? And
They did. The thing about COVID was this, is that before COVID, they'd go out and play basketball and football. They always had a good time playing in the neighborhood. When COVID came, nobody went outside. Even after school, everybody returning back to school, people didn't come out in the neighborhood. They just didn't.
And was that something that they had done, as you mentioned, they would play outside a lot? What kind of things would they do outside?
Well, kick the soccer ball. I mean, I was out there with them when I got home, but they would throw the soccer ball, throw the baseball, throw the football, play basketball in the neighborhood, dribble in our driveway, bounce it off the wall, go to the swimming pool.
They have bikes, ride around the neighborhood?
We had bikes, rode around the neighborhood.
Did they have any friends that were, kind of their best friends, or people that you saw a lot?
Well, they had some down the street, then there was some near the pool. There was a basketball goal there, and then there was 2 blocks over where they'd play.
These were like kind of neighborhood kids?
Right.
Did Austin did you ever hear of or know of any bullying incidents where he was being bullied at school or elsewhere?
2 times it did happen.
And about when was that, if you recall?
Both of them occurred in 6th grade.
And that would have been in middle school?
Yes.
And were those things did those happen at school?
One happened at school. The other one was when he was getting off the bus.
And were those things, those incidents, were those significant incidents, or were they kind of kids being bullies and then it got handled? Or describe it for us.
Well, the first one in the 6th grade, I was called because Austin was in the principal's office. So I go there, and what happened is that there was a set of twins that had been bullied the whole year. And so Austin was with one of his friends, and his friend had a pack of chewing gum. When you pull it out, it's got a spring to it, okay? So his friend had given it to Austin, and Austin was just joking around with the twins and say, hey, here's this, and they won't take it or something like that. And so when Austin got up, one of the twins had were on their knees, and the other one pushed him backwards.
Okay.
So when they called me there, I'm all about being fair and equal. So I go there, and the assistant principal met with me, with us in a conference room. The assistant principal was here, I was here, Austin's here, the two twins were here, and the father was over there. And so the assistant principal asked what had taken place, and the twins, they were just quiet. So I asked Austin, tell me what happened, because I don't play these kind of games. So he explained what took place, just like I explained to you. And so anyway, they asked the twins, and that's when the twins said they'd been bullied and everything, and it kind of just come to the forefront where today's the day.
Right.
Austin just had to be the guy. The father didn't say anything, so they were just going to kind of brush it underneath the rug. And so anyway, I said, let me go on the record. And I looked at the assistant principal, and I looked at Austin, and I said, Austin, if this happens to you again, I said, you make sure that they pull you off the next time this happens. Because if they're not going to address it at school, and the school was great, okay, I'm not knocking it, but that particular day didn't sit well with me when they didn't properly address it with him.
Okay. And then there was an incident on the bus. Mm-hmm. That was in 6th grade as well.
Right. So anyway, when I came home, somehow it came up, Austin got pushed off the bus. So I asked what happened on that occasion, and he said, when I got off the bus, he pushed me. And I said, well, what happened? He said, he just did. I said, okay. I said, where does the person live? And they lived about five houses down. I said, come with me, Austin. So we walk down, I knock on the door, the man answers the door. And I explained to him who I was. I said, it's my understanding your son pushed my son. He said, well, hold on for a second, let me go get him. Everything was a calm conversation. He calls his son comes up there. He said, did you push this man's son when you got off the bus? He said, yes. He said, well, I'll deal with you later. And that's what it was. So I said, Austin, you can go on home. And what's kind of ironic about the whole thing is that the man was very nice. He worked, I get to know people. I'm just an extrovert at times. He worked at Central Prison. He explained to me how things, how folks act in that place. And I said, yeah, I always tell my sons, you don't want to end up there. Even when I drove home, we'd see, Pullen Park, you don't want to end up there, guys. Going back home. This is where you don't want to end up here. And look where we are. So, but no. Besides
those two incidents, no other incidents?
No.
And you were here when Elise testified, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she described that James and Austin had a good relationship with one another.
Oh, they did.
Is that fair?
That's true.
How would you describe Austin's relationship with his mom?
They get along great.
How about his relationship with you?
Oh, I got along great with both of them. I mean, right. They were my best friends.
Right. And besides just getting along with, would you describe? Were you able to tell who Austin might have been closer with?
We all had our own time with him. Because I'm self-employed, I can get off when I need to. If they're out of school, it's not like I'm gonna keep working and they're at home. So I could go and do things with them. With her, just like when I was in the corporate world for 34 years, she has a set amount of vacation time. So when they were off, I'd take them out and we'd go on trips, go to my mother's house or go to different places.
And some of the things you would do with Austin and James involved going hunting.
Sure.
And is that something you grew up doing?
At an early age 11.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
In Columbus County.
And was that something that you introduced to them, or kind of around the same age as you were when you got introduced to it?
No, they were later.
Okay. About when, if you remember?
James was 13 and Austin was 12.
And how did that start? What did you do?
Well, when they were about 8, 9 years old, they get a BB gun. Just like when I was growing up, I got a BB gun. And so we just go out and shoot little paper targets and stuff like that.
Okay. And when they got to be 12 and 13, did you take them hunting first, or did you take them kind of to a range, or how did that?
Well, when I take them back home, it's we don't own the land, but it's owned by relatives, and so it's the same property that I've always been on. And so we'd go target practicing. We always practice gun safety. That's from day one, just like my daddy did me. I raised my sons the same way I was raised. It's gun safety. And so we target practice, and so they can get comfortable being around a firearm. And then later on, it started with a 22, and then later on a 12-gauge shotgun, just like the way I was raised.
Okay. And at some point, did y'all start hunting?
Yes, it was in 2019, 2020, somewhere.
What kind of things did you guys hunt?
Well, we took him out squirrel hunting, but really, real hunting was when we went duck hunting, turkey hunting, and then we went dove hunting.
And of the two boys, who I guess took to that, more than another, if so?
Well, all three of us went. Maybe last year, maybe Austin and I, we went more than James.
Okay. And was this something that they were good at?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And to the extent that at some point did you take Austin to a range to practice?
Yes. Back in 2019, we were out in a swamp just target practicing. Saw a bottle in the swamp, so we shot it. And I had my pistol. I shot it a few times, and Austin had never shot it before. And so anyway, he said, "Can I shoot it?" And I said, "Well, here's some ear protection." And when he's shooting, he was almost as accurate as I was, which I couldn't believe. And so that's how that started.
Okay. And was that going to a range? Was that something y'all did regularly, or was that something that?
No, well, that's out on the farmland.
Okay.
Out in the swamp, there's no range there.
Okay. Did you ever take him to a range here around Raleigh?
I took him probably 3 or 4 times when I went.
And is that one of those situations where you bring your own guns to use, or do you get to use some of the guns that they have there at the range?
You can bring your own, but you can rent some if you want to.
Okay. And what did you guys choose to do?
I took my Smith & Wesson, and then I have a Sig Sauer 365.
And you mentioned that you were big on gun safety. Did you have the boys do classes, or was that something that was just kind of knowledge passed down?
Yeah, knowledge passed down. Always.
Now, what the hunting and shooting, was that something that the boys asked you to do that, or was that just kind of something that was, you know, it's this season, let's go ahead and get a trip on the books or something like that?
It was just, I took them to Columbus County so they could experience the same childhood I did. And we did everything the same way I did. You fishing during a certain season, you go fishing, you go to the mountains, you go to the beach, whatever season it is, and it's just by the calendar.
Okay. Did y'all ever do any camping or anything like that? Or?
In hotels.
Was that something that they were interested in at all, or?
Nah, I don't think so.
Okay. Not with you anyway.
Nah.
Okay. Did they ever decide, you know, camp out in the backyard or do anything like that?
No, the closer we got to camping, we went into Austin's room and we took a bed sheet and we set it up, have a little tent when they were like 9 or 10 years old.
Okay. All right. Did and I may have asked you this, but did Austin have any you know, specific close friends that you knew of? You know, a certain kid that would come around the house, or that he would go to his house, or anything like that?
No, not really. James neither, because they enjoyed going out, playing, or after COVID, since people didn't come out, they were more driven on being on PlayStation, so they talked to their friends. James talked to more people overseas, which I thought was pretty cool, different countries, and Austin, he spoke to more people here in the United States. So that, you might say, that's their new friendship, because during COVID, that's where your friends are, and it just kind of had a continuation.
Okay, and that was those games that you were talking about, they got to play.
Right.
Okay. And Elise mentioned that both of the boys had cell phones, is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Do you remember when Austin got his cell phone?
He got his the Christmas of 2019.
And was that something that he had been looking forward to getting?
Yes, but I was teaching. My daddy died at age 53 at a young age, and so I was preparing them for life without me since they were little. And so when Austin got his phone for Christmas, I told him he's got to pay the monthly bill.
Okay.
And so, earlier than that, I was teaching them to, if you want something, you work for it.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. Did he work? Did Austin work or have a job, or did he?
Yeah. So those guys were something else. They had James set up. First of all, he set up a golf ball stand in our backyard because it's back to the fairway. It's because at an early age, he and I, we used to go golf ball hunting. And so anyway, we got in the woods, pick up golf balls, and I was pretty avid golfer. So anyway, he started selling golf balls. And then he came in the house one day. He said, "Hey, you got this money." I said, "Where'd you get it from?" He said, "I was selling golf balls." I said, "Do what?" So I saw a stand. So anyway, he started saving money, and then Austin heard about, hey, you can make money. Hey, I'm gonna go out there and work. So they started selling golf balls. Then some golfer came by and said, "Why don't you sell lemonade?" So anyway, I said, "Look, this is age 8 or 9. I was teaching them business. I will French you the money, but you'll pay me back." Okay. So they started it, and so they made money from the golf ball, lemonade stand. Then when I did jobs, I told them, if you go with me, I'll give you 10%. And sometimes they ask me how much I'm going to charge. And the money that you found with him, all of it but $20 was his. And I knew he kept it because he liked to hold on money. But $20 was on James's nightstand where he helped me on a job.
And so, what types of things would you get Austin to help you with?
Just repairs. I do residential and commercial work here in Wake County.
All right. And I think we've heard Elise said that you were a handyman, kind of jack of all trades.
Sure.
And was Austin handy?
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
Did they have a bank account or credit cards or anything, or were you the bank?
No, I was not going to be the bank, because if I die, you're gone. So they had an account, and James had saved money for a car, and it's going to go to college. Austin had an account, and he had some money in it, and then he had money he kept in his room.
Were they able to just spend the money as they wanted, or did y'all have some parameters on that as parents?
Well, James, he was pretty tight. He never really wanted to spend money. Everything he would say, here's this, put it into my account, put it into my account. Austin, he's like 50-50. He's going to spend, another time he'd save.
Did they have their own cards to use? Like if
No.
They did. And I think you just mentioned that James had been saving for a car. Was there anything that you knew of that Austin was saving up money for or really wanted?
Well, see, James is older, so we would talk about different things like college and stuff like that because he was getting closer to that time period.
Right. There wasn't any. I mean, was Austin into anything? Skateboards, motorbikes, computers, anything like that he would want to spend his money on?
Well,
That you knew of?
I don't know whether it's candy or different games you can put into PlayStation.
Okay. During the you're aware during the investigation, officers, police located some firearms and ammunition in your house. Can you describe, what they found, why you had that?
Well, as most people know, I have had 11 taken out of the house. Out of those 11, I think only 3 or 4 of them I'd actually purchased. The rest were family firearms, like my daddy's pistol, my mother's pistol, my daddy's .22 rifle. He had another .22 rifle. He had a 12-gauge shotgun. Those are kind of floating around the families that I'd recently acquired. And then, believe it or not, I had one customer. His father passed away, and he'd give me his 12-gauge double-barrel shotgun.
Okay.
One of our customers, because he knew my family and I would like to go hunting. And I said, no, you pass it down to your family. He said, Alan, you know I'm not going to have children. You met my partner. I want you to have it.
Okay.
I said, okay.
And there was one that it seemed to be not even assembled yet. Was that?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was the story with that one?
That one I was going to give him Austin for Christmas so he could use it when we went duck hunting.
And there was a lot of ammunition that law enforcement found in your house. Was there a reason that there was so much there?
Yes. On the surface, it would seem like it's a lot. But unless people knew what was going on during the pandemic, you could not find ammunition 9mm on the shelves anywhere. If you found it, you better buy it. And on top of that, the price was going up on ammunition so much that to me it's just better investment than buying mutual funds. And so if I found it, I would buy it. And that's the reason why there was so much there. And on top of that, I don't know, what was it, 20 million firearms sold. So when these firearms are sold, people were going to get ammunition. So that's the reason why there was so much there. It's not like I just want to go out and stockpile, as people would say. I wasn't doing that.
Okay. Was it, and you've seen some photographs of some of that ammunition in lunch, like plastic bags, Ziploc bags. Was that a way that you kept was that normal in your home?
No, that never. I never used a Ziploc bag for anything. It's always in its boxes. The only Ziploc bag that ammunition was kept in was in my safe. It was the 6 bullets that came out of my daddy's pistol, and it's for sentimental purposes.
And was there and that was just kind of left that was in your closet, We saw some photographs, so the boys both had long guns in their rooms. Was there a reason that you didn't have all this stuff in a gun safe or locked up somewhere?
Yeah, right. I raised my sons the same way that I was raised. Yeah, firearm safety. Then on top of that, a lot of folks might not know, but above age 12, you can be in possession of a long rifle. And so if I'm not home, or Elise is not home, I would hope that they would be able to protect themselves if someone came to the house, because law enforcement, they know I support them, but there's only so many of them that can respond so fast. And so I would want them to be able to protect themselves if someone ever came into the house.
And had you had, you ever have any issues with, that you knew of, with the boys, accessing your guns or using them or playing with them in a way that wasn't safe?
No.
Now, obviously, we're in a different spot now than you were back then, and you've had some time to think about all that has happened, I imagine. It sounds like you expressed to Detective Tripp that you wanted to get an answer to the question why. Looking back, was there anything that you can think of that you feel like now might have been cause for concern with regards to Austin?
No. There was, I would have addressed it just like at school, I would have addressed it. I would not have hesitated a bit.
Did he have any changes in mood over that period of time, or with his attitude?
There was no signs. If there was going to be any signs, it would definitely have been during those 2 phone calls. I mean, even to this day, I do not understand how, first of all, how you can kill your brother. I mean, the other victims, I feel sorry for them. Okay, that's not to be said, but how can you do that? Dragging 90 feet, because I walked it off. He's 161 pounds, he weighed 100, and Austin was 126 pounds. When I talk to you, how can you talk to me in a calm voice and not be in shock, breathing heavy, or anything else? And the second time I talked to him, my understanding is, from reading different things, he was on the run, he wasn't even breathing hard. How can you do that? I don't know how it's even possible. It's unbelievable. I still don't understand it.
And he hadn't had any behavior issues?
None.
And he had been on this medication for about a year, the acne medication.
Best I can recall, yeah.
And did he ever have any, did he complain to you, or did you notice any changes?
None.
Did he have any, did you know about whether or not he was, was he really into true crime or serial killer shows or games or anything like that?
No, because I mean, some people, I guess I didn't look at their electronics because I had really no reason to. You think there's something coming, or if you hear something, you would check it, right? But I know when I went to college, parents had been so stringent. When they went to college, they just went crazy. I mean, so in other words, you got to give them a little bit of rope and everything, and you keep building that trust up. There was no signs at all.
Okay,
None.
And you trusted Austin?
I trusted both of them.
Right. And Austin hadn't given you any reason to not trust him. Is that fair to say?
No.
At some point after this investigation, I guess it kind of tapered off a little bit. You still maintain communication with law enforcement, is that right? With Detective Tripp?
I've been fully cooperative the entire time. That's well known.
And when was there a time where you found something in Austin's room that you thought that law enforcement might need to know about after this?
Yeah, we were. at least now we're cleaning up the rooms, because when law enforcement came in, they had to do their jobs. I'm not saying anything negative. The rooms were kind of turned up and down, so we were sorting things out. And so anyway, I was going through drawers, just pulling things out, trying to get them straightened out, and I came across chapstick. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I could use it or something. So I popped it open, and I didn't see chapstick. So I looked inside, and there's little pieces of paper or something. So anyway, I took it out and I sat on the sofa and started pulling it out. And I didn't understand what it was and tried to pull up on my phone, research. I said, what is this? And so I don't know. I turned it over to my criminal attorneys, and I said, look, I need you to give this, since I represent, I need you to give this to law enforcement.
Okay.
And so they turned it over.
They got it to detect the
Mhm.
truth. Okay. But it was, you didn't know what it was, but you thought it might be something they want to know about. Is that
That's
fair?
right.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, thank you for answering all these questions and taking your time today. Before I get to kind of my last question, I want to give you a chance to talk about James. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but James was into sports. Is that right?
That's correct.
What kind of sports was he into, and what kind of athlete was he?
He was a great athlete. James, he was special from day one, because first of all, he's my first child. When he was born, at least she did not like it when I said this, but I said he has big hands, big feet, and he's strong. I had to peel his left hand off the nurse's arm, and I could see the whites in his hand, but he could do a one-arm foot push-up when he was 5 years old. He was on I-9 soccer team. They made him the captain. He was the best in the league. That's a fact. And they won the championship. That year and the next year, he was on Hedingham swim team. And he was swimming different events. That second year, they went undefeated. So now he's got 2 championships by the time he's 7. Then in the second grade, he got the Presidential Physical Fitness Award. In the 4th and 5th grade, he represented Millbrook Elementary High School in one event when they were participating against 26 other schools. Now Austin, he represented them two events, and the next year 3 events. But then I coached him in upper basketball. Austin was on that team. A 10-year anniversary this year. We were 8-1, best in the league, and then intramurals, he 6th and 8th grade. His intramural team, he was quarterback. They won. He threw for 3 touchdowns, ran for 1, and then he threw for 4 touchdowns, ran for 2, and he was voted most athletic in the 6th grade.
And those are things he enjoyed doing that.
Mm-hmm.
He enjoyed being on those teams. Fair to say, Austin was a little less outgoing.
He didn't get involved in his sports, but he had the skills.
Right.
He had the skills.
This wasn't something that you preferred.
You were right. I mean, yeah.
James did well in school.
Yes.
Was practicing driving.
Oh, I took him to my hometown 4 times. First time we didn't have a right birth certificate, and finally the 4th time he got his learner's permit on my birthday when I turned 59. He got it same place I did on my 59th birthday. He's a very good driver from day one. I told him the only thing he had to work on is anticipation. Don't worry about the car in front, but the one in front of it. You couldn't ask for any better.
Well, like I said before, Mr. Thompson, thank you for answering these questions. I want to give you the opportunity to tell the court what you would like the court to know about how this has impacted you, the loss of James, how it's affected you and your family.
Sure, I'll see if I can read this. On January 10th, 2006, Elise and I welcomed our first child, James Roger Thompson, into our family. 17 months later, on June 10th, 2007, she gave birth to Austin David Thompson. We felt blessed to have 2 healthy babies, especially since we were older parents. For 16 years, we enjoyed being with them and watching them grow up through the different stages of life. From crawling to taking the first steps, saying the first word ball for both of them, to going from daycare to middle school through COVID and into high school. Those were the best 16 years of our lives. They were our world. Reading the book Brown Bear, What Do You See was our favorite time at night when they were little. As time went by, our bonds with them grew even stronger. After a long day at work, they could make you feel great by the smile on their face when you picked them up from daycare or school, and they would come running to you saying, "Daddy" or "Mommy." As they got older, it was a great end to the day to walk into the door to them before sitting down to eat dinner as a family. As they got older, there were so many successes, whether it was good grades in school, an excellent decorated Christmas cookie on Christmas Eve, a particularly excellent basketball shot, catching their first fish, or playing video games together. There were so many good times. They especially like the tradition of going to Goodberry's on the last day of school. Elise and I were elated when people would stop us in the mall and tell us we have 2 cute boys. Over the years, we enjoyed the holidays, from Easter egg hunts in the neighborhood, jet skiing on Falls Lake, and setting off fireworks on the 4th of July, trick-or-treating in the neighborhood, and going to Grandma's house for Thanksgiving and Christmas lunch. We helped James and Austin with their lemonade and gumball stand when they were 8 and 9 years old. They were always coming up with something. Throughout the years, we went to the beach in the summer, mountains in the fall, collegiate and professional sporting events, historical sites, fishing, hunting, zip lining, swimming pool and lakes, amusement parks, and the state fair to play games, ride rides, and eat the crazy foods. James and Austin loved the Oreo funnel cake, cotton candy, and lemonade. I enjoyed teaching them how to play basketball, soccer, baseball, golf, tennis, and football. They both enjoyed playing and watching sports. We attended church regularly, served on several committees, involved in mission work, participated and coached church basketball. Elise loved making their Halloween costumes, taking them for ice cream on Sundays, taking them to the pool and parks, and helped them with their clothes and homework. As they got older, they enjoyed playing on the Xbox 360 and later to their PlayStation, where they met people across the United States and overseas. Prior to the pandemic, they enjoyed playing football and basketball in the neighborhood and going to the pool. We were close to our boys. They were both such good sons. You couldn't ask for any better. On October 13th, 2022, Elise and I experienced a parent's worst nightmare. That afternoon, we lost our entire family. We do not know why Austin murdered his brother and shot 6 other people. From the night of the tragedy forward, we have been fully cooperative with the Raleigh Police Department in the hope that we would receive an answer to why Austin did this from their investigation. To date, it still remains unknown to me why this tragedy occurred. We lost both of our sons in one afternoon. I cannot even begin to describe the pain we feel every day. We're just trying to do the best we can. I'm not sure I will ever be able to reconcile the boy I knew with the one that committed this crime. The boy I knew for 15 years would never have done this. The note he left behind doesn't make sense to me. None of it makes sense to me. I know he did it, but it's like it's 2 completely different people. I want to apologize to the other victims for the pain that Austin has caused their families. I've spoken to relatives and friends who have lost their children and loved ones who are trying to provide me comfort. For some of them, it's been a few years, and the others, it's been a few decades since they experienced their loss. They have told us that the pain will never go away, but over time we will find peace. I hope that I can find peace someday, though it seems hard to believe that I will. I imagine that you all feel the same way. So I want to say that I'm sorry for your pain and that I hope that one day you will find peace.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Thompson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all, sir. Mr.
Take a breath and let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Good.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Thompson.
Huh? Good morning.
I want to talk for a few minutes about something we didn't talk a lot on direct about, which is Austin today.
Okay.
How often have you been able to see him since he's been at the detention center?
We've been there every time that we could see him.
And how often is that?
In the summer, because of staffing, they stopped the visitation. But before that, we would see him once every Sunday.
And so you were able to spend time with him in person?
Yes.
And do you also talk to him on the phone?
Yes.
And what is your relationship with Austin like since this happened?
Well, I don't expect people to understand this, but I love my two sons, and I always will love my two sons. But my relationship with Austin's changed because of what he did.
When you can, tell me how your relationship has changed.
Well, my whole life has changed. I mean, the things that we were planning to do together, James, Austin, and I just going on different trips like we always had, and discussions we had about going to college, not so much which one to major in. We haven't gotten that far down the road, but all those dreams are gone. And so when James died, part of me died, and with Austin, I mean, I still love him, but I just don't understand why. I can't. The problem I have, I can't put the two and two together. The person I raised and the person who did these things, I can't put them together.
Mr. Thompson, focusing on the Austin that you've known since this event,
Right.
you put that Austin with the person that committed this offense.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Does it?
I'm sorry.
Does your knowledge of him now make it make sense?
No. I don't understand it. I mean, there were no signs. There were no signs, and that's the scary part. There were no signs at all. If there was, I mean, and I'd avoided them, I wouldn't be here today. I've said it before. I wouldn't be here today because I was going to live with the guilt.
And Mr. Thompson, after all of this is over, he'll certainly go to prison. He's already pled.
Mm-hmm.
Do you plan to continue to visit him?
Oh, like I said, my sons, I mean, I used to tell them every day, you guys are the reason why I get up every day, and I said I love you, and I always will, but I don't condone his actions. I mean, but I always will love my children. I always will.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Thompson.
Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you.